The stars looked different from inside the alien ship. Ambassador Kethavar pressed his three-fingered hand against the viewing window and watched the small human vessel struggle through space. The ship called Liberty moved like a wounded animal, leaving a trail of sparks and debris behind it. "Sir, their engine is failing," said his assistant, a young Zephyrian named Veltar. "They will not reach their destination." Kethavar nodded slowly. His people had been watching the humans for 50 Earth years. These strange creatures fascinated him. They built machines that barely worked, took risks that made no sense, and somehow kept surviving. Today, 4 of them were trying to reach Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Their ship was falling apart, but they kept going. "Should we help them?" Veltar asked. "Yes," Kethavar decided. "It is time we made contact." The bridge of the Liberty was filled with flashing red lights and angry beeping sounds. Captain Jake Murphy wiped sweat from his forehead as he stared at the control panel. Everything was going wrong at once. "How bad is it, Lisa?" he asked. Lisa Carter, the ship's engineer, was lying on her back under a control panel. Sparks fell around her like rain. "The fusion drive is cracked," she said. "We're losing power fast. Maybe 2 hours before we lose life support." Ben Rodriguez looked up from his science station. "We're so close to Europa, I can see it on the scanner." Amy Sullivan, their pilot, shook her head. "We'll never make it. The engines are dying." Jake was about to respond when the communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in perfect English, but with a strange accent. "Human vessel Liberty. This is Ambassador Kethavar of the Zephyrian Diplomatic Corps. We have been monitoring your situation. Do you require assistance?" The 4 humans looked at each other in shock. Jake was the first to speak. Yes. We definitely need help. But who are you exactly?" "We are explorers like yourselves. We have been watching your species for some time. You have impressed us with your determination, though we sometimes question your methods." Lisa crawled out from under the panel. "Are you saying you're aliens?" "That is correct. We are positioning our ship to assist you. Please do not be alarmed." Through the front window, they saw a massive ship appear. It was 3 times the size of the Liberty and covered in smooth silver metal. It looked like it was made by people who actually knew what they were doing. "Wow," Amy whispered. "That's incredible." Kethavar's voice came through the speakers again. "Captain Murphy, we can tow your vessel to safety. However, your ship is too damaged to continue to Europa. We suggest returning to Earth for proper repairs." Jake felt his heart sink. They had worked for years to get this mission approved. Europa might have life under its ice. This was their chance to make the greatest discovery in human history. "How long would it take to get repair parts?" Jake asked. "With proper Zephyrian technology, perhaps 6 of your months. With human technology, much longer." Lisa was already looking at the damage reports. "Jake, we came here to drill through Europa's ice and look for life. We've got all the equipment we need. But the ship is broken," Ben pointed out. "So we fix it," Lisa said with a grin. "It's not that bad. I can work with this." Amy raised an eyebrow. "Lisa, half the fusion drive is missing. I can build a new one. We've got spare parts from the drilling equipment. Some creative rewiring, maybe borrow some components from life support." Kethavar had been listening to their conversation. "Captain Murphy, what your engineer is suggesting is extremely dangerous. The probability of success is very low. The probability of survival is even lower." Jake stood up and walked to the communication panel. "Ambassador, how long have you been watching us?" 50 Earth years. "Then you know we don't give up easy. Ben, hold my beer." Ben looked confused. "Jake, you're not drinking beer." "It's an expression," Jake said. "It means I'm about to do something that might be stupid." On the Zephyrian ship, Kethavar turned to his translation computer. "What does hold my beer mean?" The computer made several beeping sounds. Translation unclear. The human appears to be asking someone to hold an alcoholic beverage, but no such beverage is present. Veltar was monitoring the human conversation. Sir, they are planning to attempt repairs themselves. That is impossible. Their ship is beyond repair with their current resources. Should we tell them that? Kethavar watched the humans moving around their damaged ship. Lisa was already pulling apart equipment. Ben was helping her carry tools. Amy was running calculations on her computer. Jake was coordinating everything with the calm confidence of someone who had done impossible things before. No, Kethavar said slowly. I want to see what they do. Lisa had found what she needed. The drilling equipment used a small fusion reactor to power the drill. It was not designed to power a spaceship, but she thought she could make it work. She would need to reroute the plasma conduits, bypass the safety systems, and pray that the whole thing did not explode. This is crazy, Ben said as he helped her move the reactor. Crazy is what we do best, Lisa replied. Hand me that wrench. Amy was working on the navigation system. Even if we get the engines working, we'll be flying. Blind? Half the sensors are dead. I can pilot by sight, Amy said. It's not like there's traffic out here. Jake was talking to the aliens again. Ambassador, we appreciate your offer to help, but we're going to fix this ourselves. Captain Murphy, your plan is very dangerous. We cannot allow you to risk your lives. With respect, Ambassador, you can't stop us. This is our ship, our mission, and our choice. Kethavar was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. Very well. We will monitor your progress. If you require assistance, we will provide it. Thank you, Jake said. Oh, and Ambassador? You might want to back up a little. This could get messy. Lisa was connecting the last power coupling when she looked up at her friends. Everyone ready? As ready as we'll ever be, Ben said. Let's do this, Amy added. Fire it up, Jake ordered. Lisa activated the makeshift fusion drive. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ship shuddered, the lights flickered, and the engines came to life with a sound like thunder. On the Zephyrian ship, Kethavar watched in amazement as the Liberty's engines glowed with new power. Feltar was running calculations frantically. Sir, they did it. The ship is operational. That should not be possible, Kethavar said. But it is happening. Kethavar made a note in his log. Humans appear to operate under different rules of physics than other species. Further observation required. Jake's voice came over the radio. Ambassador, thanks for the offer, but we've got this. See you on Europa. The Liberty turned toward the ice-covered moon and began to accelerate. Behind it, the Zephyrian ship followed at a safe distance. Sir, Feltar asked, what does hold my beer really mean? Kethavar watched the human ship disappear into the darkness. I believe it means watch me do something impossible. He was beginning to understand that for humans, impossible was just another word for interesting. The Liberty shook like a washing machine as it flew toward Europa. Lisa Carter crawled through the cramped engine room, checking her repairs. The fusion reactor from the drilling equipment was working, but it was not happy about being turned into a spaceship engine. How are we doing back there? Jake Murphy called from the bridge. We're flying, Lisa shouted back. I can't promise for how long. Amy Sullivan gripped the pilot controls as the ship bounced through space. The steering is weird. It feels like driving a shopping cart with a broken wheel. Ben Rodriguez was monitoring their approach to Europa. We should reach the moon in 6 hours, if we don't blow up first. Behind them, the Zephyrian ship followed at what Ambassador Kethavar considered a safe distance. On his bridge, every alarm was ringing. His ship's computers were having trouble believing what they were seeing. Sir, Veltar said, his voice shaking, the human ship should not be able to fly. According to our analysis, their repair violates 17 safety protocols and 3 laws of physics. Kethavar studied the readings. Yet they are flying. The plasma flow is unstable. The power coupling is overloaded. The radiation shielding is insufficient. If any one of 50 different components fails, they will die instantly. Have you told them this? They said, and I quote, yeah, we know. It'll be fine. Kethavar made another note in his log. Humans appeared to have a very different relationship with death than other species. They acknowledged danger and then ignored it. On the Liberty, Lisa emerged from the engine room, covered in grease and smiling. Good news and bad news. Bad news. First, Jake said, the reactor is running hot. We're getting more power than we need, but it's unstable. If it overloads, we'll turn into a very pretty firework. And the good news? Since we have extra power, I think I can use it to run the drill at the same time we're flying. We could start melting through Europa's ice the moment we land. Amy looked back from the pilot seat. Lisa, that sounds incredibly dangerous. Everything we do is incredibly dangerous. That's what makes it fun. Ben was running calculations on his computer. If we use the reactor to power both the engines and the drill, we'll be running at 120% capacity. So, we'll need to work fast, Lisa said. Jake activated the communication system. Ambassador Kethvar, are you still there? Yes, Captain Murphy. We are monitoring your progress with great concern. We wanted to let you know about a small change in our plan. There was a pause. What kind of change? Lisa took the microphone. We're going to use our engine as a giant drill bit when we reach Europa. The silence from the alien ship lasted so long that Jake wondered if the communication had broken. Finally, Kethvar spoke. Did you say you plan to use your fusion drive as a drilling tool? That's right. We can melt through the ice and fly at the same time. Very efficient. Veltar was frantically working at his station. Sir, I've run the calculations 3 times. If they attempt this plan, the probability of mission success is 8%. The probability of survival is 4%. Kethvar activated his communicator. Captain Murphy, we strongly advise against this course of action. The risk is too great. Jake's voice came back cheerful and confident. Ambassador, we appreciate your concern, but this is what we came here to do. Besides, 8% isn't that bad. How did you know our calculations showed 8%? Because that's about what we figured too. Ben's got it at 7%, but he's a pessimist. Ben called out from his station. I heard that, and I still think 7% is optimistic. Kethvar turned to his science officer. How is this possible? They know the odds of success are terrible, yet they proceed anyway. Sir, I believe this is what they call holding beer. Holding their beer, Kethvar corrected. And I think you are right. On the Liberty, Lisa was making final adjustments to her improvised engine. She had connected the drilling equipment directly to the fusion reactor, bypassed 12 safety systems, and crossed her fingers. The whole setup looked like it had been built by someone in a hurry with limited supplies, which was exactly what had happened. Amy, when we get close to Europa, I need you to point us straight down at the ice, Lisa said. You want me to crash us into the moon? Not crash. More like a controlled dive. We'll fire the engines in reverse to slow down, but we'll also be firing them forward to melt the ice. Amy stared at her. Lisa, that makes no sense. I know. Isn't it great? Ben was studying Europa through the ship's telescopes. The ice is thicker than we thought. Maybe 20 kilometers thick in some places. No problem, Lisa said. We'll just make a bigger hole. Jake was listening to their conversation with a mixture of pride and terror. His crew was completely insane, but they were his kind of insane. How long until we reach Europa? 4 hours, Amy replied. Good. Everyone get some rest. We're going to need it. But none of them could rest. They were too excited and too scared. Instead, they spent the time checking and double-checking their equipment. Lisa went over every connection in the engine room. Ben calibrated his scientific instruments. Amy practiced emergency landing procedures that had never been tested. Jake reviewed their mission plan, which was looking less like a plan and more like a list of things that could go wrong. On the Zephyrian ship, Kethvar was having an emergency conference with his superiors. The Supreme Council of Zephyr was very interested in humanity's first mission to Europa, but they were horrified by what they were seeing. Ambassador, came the voice of Council Leader Zephyron, you must stop them. This mission will end in disaster. I have tried, Supreme Leader. They refuse to listen. Then use your tractor beam. Bring them aboard your ship by force. Kethvar hesitated. That would violate their sovereignty. Better to violate their sovereignty than to watch them die. Sir, with respect, I do not think they are going to die. The mathematics are clear. Ambassador, they cannot succeed. Human mathematics appear to be different from ours. There was a long pause. Explain. Kethvar looked at the human ship, still somehow flying despite everything that was wrong with it. Humans do not calculate probability the same way we do. When we see a 8% chance of success, we see failure. When they see 8%, they see possibility. That is illogical. Yes, sir. That appears to be their greatest strength. 2 hours before reaching Europa, the Liberty's fusion reactor began making a new sound. It was a deep rumbling noise that seemed to come from everywhere at once. That's not good, Lisa muttered, checking her instruments. Define not good, Jake said. The reactor is building up pressure. If we don't release it soon, we'll explode. How do we release it? Lisa grinned. Fire up the drill. We need to start melting ice. Amy looked out the front window. Europa was getting bigger, but they were still an hour away from landing. Lisa, there's no ice here. We're in space. Then we make some. Lisa activated the ship's water recycling system and pumped all their spare water into the space in front of them. Instant ice cubes, she fired the drill. A beam of superheated plasma shot out from the front of the ship, instantly vaporizing the water and creating a cloud of steam. Did that work? Jake asked. The pressure is dropping, Lisa reported. We should be okay for another hour. Kethvar watched the display of improvised engineering with something approaching awe. They just used their drinking water as a test target for their weapon. Their fusion drill is not a weapon, sir, Veltar pointed out. Tell that to Europa's ice. The Liberty approached Europa like a falling star, engines blazing and drill firing. To the Zephyrians watching from their safe distance, it looked less like a scientific mission and more like an invasion. Ambassador, came Council Leader Zephyron's voice. What is your assessment of these humans? Kethvar watched Jake Murphy's crew prepare for what should have been certain death, with the casual confidence of people going to lunch. Sir, I believe we have encountered something entirely new. A species that treats the impossible as merely inconvenient. And your recommendation? Kethvar smiled, an expression his people had learned from watching human broadcasts. I recommend we learn to hold their beer. Europa looked like a giant ice ball covered in brown lines. As the Liberty got closer, the crew could see the cracks and ridges that covered the moon's surface. Somewhere under all that ice was an ocean that might contain life. Beginning landing approach, Amy Sullivan announced, her hands steady on the controls despite the ship shaking like a paint mixer. Lisa Carter was in the engine room, watching dozens of warning lights flash red. Jake, the reactor is getting angry again. We need to use this power or we're going to blow up. How long do we have? Jake Murphy asked. Maybe 10 minutes. Ben Rodriguez was studying the ice through his instruments. The ice is thicker than we thought. Some places are 30 kilometers deep. Our drill might not be strong enough. Amy looked back from the pilot seat. 30 kilometers? That's like drilling through a mountain. A mountain made of ice. Ben corrected. And we don't know how hard it is. Jake made a decision. Lisa, can you make the drill stronger? I can try, but I'll need to remove more safety systems. Do it. On the Zephyrian ship, Ambassador Kethvar was watching the human approach, with growing alarm. Veltar, what are they doing now? His assistant checked the readings. Sir, they appear to be removing the safety controls from their fusion reactor. All of them? Yes, sir. The reactor is now operating without any safety limits. Kethvar activated his communicator. Captain Murphy, this is extremely dangerous. Your reactor could explode at any moment. Jake's voice came back calm and cheerful. Thanks for the warning, Ambassador. We're aware of the risks. Then why are you doing this? Because we need more power to drill through the ice. But if the reactor explodes, you will die. If we don't drill through the ice, the mission fails. We'd rather die trying than give up. Kethvar turned to Veltar. Record everything. The Galactic Council needs to see this. The Liberty was now only a few kilometers above Europa's surface. The ice looked smooth from space, but up close they could see it was full of cracks and ridges. Some of the cracks were as wide as canyons. Where should we land? Amy asked. Ben pointed to a flat area near one of the larger cracks. There, the ice might be thinner near the crack. Good thinking, Jake said. Amy, take us down. Lisa's voice came over the intercom. Everyone hold on. I'm about to fire the drill at full power. The ship suddenly filled with a deep humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Through the front window they could see a beam of white-hot plasma shooting toward the ice. The moment the plasma hit Europa's surface, everything went crazy. Steam exploded upward in huge clouds. The ice began to crack and split. Chunks of ice, the size of buildings, went flying in all directions. It's working, Ben shouted over the noise. The Liberty was diving toward the surface, engines firing in reverse to slow their descent while the drill melted everything in front of them. Amy was flying by instinct since the steam made it impossible to see anything. How deep are we? Jake asked. 5 kilometers and going down fast, Ben reported. The ice is softer than we thought. But then they hit something different. The drill beam suddenly turned red instead of white, and the ship jerked to a stop. What happened? Amy asked. Lisa checked her instruments. We hit harder ice, really hard ice. The drill is having trouble. Can you give it more power? I'm already at maximum. If I push it harder, the reactor will definitely explode. Jake thought for a moment. Everyone was looking at him, waiting for orders. Through the walls of the ship they could hear the ice creaking and groaning around them. They were stuck in a hole 30 meters wide and 5 kilometers deep. Ben, how much further do we need to go? At least 20 more kilometers, maybe 25. Amy whistled softly. That's a long way down. Jake walked over to the communication panel. Ambassador Kethvar, are you there? Yes, Captain Murphy. We are monitoring your situation. What's your assessment? There was a pause. Honestly, Captain, you are trapped. The ice above you has already started to freeze again. Your drill cannot penetrate the harder ice below. You should abandon the mission and let us rescue you. Jake looked around at his crew. Lisa was covered in grease and grinning. Ben was studying his instruments with intense concentration. Amy was checking their position and fuel levels. None of them looked ready to give up. Ambassador, thank you for the offer, but we're not done yet. Captain, what can you possibly do? You are out of options. Jake smiled. Ben, hold my beer. Ben looked around confused. Jake, you still don't have any beer. I know. Lisa, is there any way to make the drill stronger? Lisa thought for a moment. Well, I could disconnect the engines and put all power into the drill. That would give us maybe 50% more power. What's the downside? We won't be able to fly. Once we're down there, we're stuck. Amy raised her hand. Also, without engines, we can't control our descent. We'll be falling. How fast? Fast enough to be exciting. Jake nodded. Do it. On the Zephyrian ship, Kethvar was frantically trying to understand what the humans were planning. Veltar, they are shutting down their engines. Sir, that means they cannot escape if something goes wrong. I do not think they care about escape. I think they only care about the mission. Veltar was studying the readings from the human ship. Sir, they are putting all power into their drill. The energy output is increasing rapidly. How much power are they generating? More than our ship's main weapons. Sir, they have turned their exploration vessel into a planetary bombardment device. Kethvar contacted his superiors immediately. Supreme Leader, the humans have just weaponized their mining equipment. Are they attacking Europa? No, sir. They are attacking the ice that is preventing them from completing their scientific mission. That makes no sense. Sir, nothing they do makes sense by our standards, but it appears to be working. Inside the Liberty, the ship was shaking so hard that it was difficult to stand. The drill was firing at full power, melting through the harder ice layer by layer. Without the engines to control their descent, they were falling down the shaft they were creating. How fast are we going? Jake asked. Amy checked her instruments. About 50 meters per second and accelerating. Is that bad? Well, if we hit the bottom too hard, we'll make a very big crater. Lisa was monitoring the drill from the engine room. The good news is we're cutting through the ice like butter. Now. The bad news is the reactor is getting really hot. How hot? Hot enough that I'm starting to worry. And you usually don't worry about anything. Exactly. Ben was watching the depth readings. 15 kilometers, 20 kilometers. We're getting close to the ocean. Suddenly, the drill beam changed color again, this time turning bright blue. The ship lurched and then began to fall faster. "What was that?" Jake asked. "I think we just broke through," Ben said, his voice full of excitement. "We're in liquid water." Amy was fighting with the controls. "The water is slowing us down, but we're still falling fast. I need the engines to stop us." Lisa's voice came over the intercom. "I can restart one engine, but it'll take a few minutes." "How much time do we have?" Ben checked the depth readings. "The ocean floor is still 5 kilometers down. At our current speed, we'll hit it in about 2 minutes. Jake grabbed the ship's communication system. "Ambassador Kethvar, we've reached Europa's ocean. Captain Murphy, according to our sensors, you are falling toward the ocean floor at dangerous speed." "Yeah, we noticed that. But we made it. We're the first humans to reach Europa's ocean. You will also be the last if you do not slow down." Jake looked around at his crew. They were all working frantically to restart the engines and avoid crashing into the ocean floor. Despite the danger, they were all smiling. "Amy, any luck with the engines?" "Working on it." "Lisa, how's that reactor?" "Still hot, but I think I can give you one engine for about 30 seconds. That should be enough." The engine fired just as they were about to hit the ocean floor. The Liberty slowed down and settled gently onto the sandy bottom of Europa's ocean. For a moment, everything was quiet, except for the sound of water around them. "Well," Jake said, "we're here." Ben was already scanning their surroundings with his instruments. His eyes went wide. "Jake, you need to see this." "What is it?" "We're not alone down here." Outside the ship, strange lights were moving in the dark water. They pulsed and flickered like underwater stars. Kethvar's voice came over the radio. "Captain Murphy, what is your status?" Jake looked out at the alien lights surrounding their ship. "Ambassador, I think we just made first contact. Again." The lights in Europa's dark ocean moved like underwater fireflies. They danced around the Liberty in patterns that seemed almost like they were trying to communicate. Jake Murphy pressed his face against the viewing window, watching the strange display. "Ben, what are we looking at?" he asked. Ben Rodriguez was frantically checking his instruments. "They're alive, Jake. Definitely alive, and they're big. Some of them are the size of whales." Amy Sullivan was trying to keep the ship stable on the ocean floor. "The current down here is stronger than expected. We're sitting in about 2 kilometers of water." Lisa Carter climbed up from the engine room, her face covered in sweat. "Good news and bad news time again." "Bad news first," Jake said automatically. "The reactor is overheating. All that drilling and flying burned out most of our cooling systems. I can keep it running for maybe 2 weeks if we're very careful with power." "And the good news? We're not dead yet." Jake laughed despite their situation. "That's your good news? Hey, 30 minutes ago we were falling toward the ocean floor at 50 meters per second. Not being dead is a major improvement." Outside, the lights were getting brighter and closer. Some of them were clearly attached to large creatures that moved through the water with graceful motions. Others seemed to be floating by themselves. "They're definitely trying to communicate," Ben said. "The light patterns are too organized to be random." Amy pointed out the window. "Look at that one." A creature about the size of a school bus was hovering near their front window. Its body was transparent, and it glowed with soft blue light. Inside the transparent body, they could see what looked like a complex nervous system pulsing with different colors. "It's beautiful," Lisa whispered. The creature suddenly flashed bright white 3 times, then waited. After a few seconds, it flashed again, 3 times, then waited. "It's counting," Ben said excitedly. "It's showing us the number 3. Jake activated the ship's external lights and flashed them 3 times in response. The creature immediately flashed 4 times. "It's teaching us math," Amy said in amazement. For the next hour, they played a mathematical conversation with the creature. It would flash a number. They would respond with the next number in sequence. Soon, other creatures joined in. The water around their ship became a light show of mathematical communication. On the Zephyrian ship far above, Ambassador Kethvar was monitoring everything. Veltar, are you recording this? Yes, sir, but I am having trouble believing it. What part troubles you most? The humans have been in Europa's ocean for less than 2 hours, and they have already established communication with the native life forms. Our best xenobiologist said this would take months or years. Kethvar nodded slowly. They used their ship's lights to talk to creatures that live in eternal darkness. Simple and effective. Sir, there is something else. Our long-range scanners show that more creatures are approaching. Many more. How many? Thousands? Maybe tens of thousands. It appears the humans have attracted the attention of the entire local ecosystem. Inside the Liberty, Ben was getting more excited by the minute. Jake, these creatures are incredibly intelligent. They understand complex mathematics. They're showing us geometric patterns now. The creature by their window was flashing lights in the shape of a triangle, then a square, then a pentagon. It was teaching them about shapes. Can we show them something? Back? Jake asked. Lisa had an idea. I can use the drill on low power to draw shapes in the sand. Do it. Lisa carefully used the drill to draw a circle in the ocean floor beneath them. The creatures immediately became more active, flashing excitedly and swimming in circles around the ship. They like it, Amy said. Try something else. Lisa drew a square, then a triangle. Each time the creatures responded with more excitement. Then she drew something more complex, a simple picture of the Liberty itself. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Hundreds of creatures appeared from the darkness, all flashing in patterns that looked almost like applause. I think we just made friends, Jake said, but their celebration was interrupted by a warning beep from the ship's computer. Amy checked the readings and frowned. We have a problem. The shaft we created to get down here is freezing over. The ice is sealing us in. Lisa ran back to the engine room to check their systems. The reactor can't power both life support and the drill for 2 weeks. If we want to melt our way back to the surface, we need to do it soon. Jake looked around at his crew. Options? We could leave now, Amy said. Fire up the drill, melt through the ice, and get back to the surface. Or? Jake asked. Ben was still watching the creatures outside. Or we stay and learn everything we can about the most amazing discovery in human history. How long can we stay? Lisa did some quick calculations. 2 weeks if we shut down everything except life support and basic instruments. No heating, no hot food, no showers. That doesn't sound so bad, Jake said. Amy raised an eyebrow. Jake, we're at the bottom of an alien ocean with a dying ship and no way home. But think about what we could learn in 2 weeks. Ambassador Kethavar's voice suddenly crackled over their radio. Captain Murphy, we are monitoring your situation. The ice above you is sealing rapidly. Soon, even our technology will not be able to reach you. Thanks for the update, Ambassador. We can extract you now, but you must decide quickly. Jake looked at his crew again. Lisa was grinning despite being covered in engine grease. Ben was practically bouncing with excitement as he watched the alien creatures. Amy was checking their supplies and equipment with the focused attention of someone planning for a long stay. Ambassador, we appreciate the offer, but we're going to stay. There was a long pause. Captain, that is not logical. You have limited supplies and a failing ship. Yeah, but we also have the discovery of a lifetime happening right outside our window. Your chances of survival are decreasing every minute. Jake smiled. Ambassador, since we met you, what have we taught you about human odds? Another pause. That you treat impossible odds as minor inconveniences. Exactly, so here's what we're going to do. Lisa, how much can you extend our supplies? Lisa thought for a moment. I can rig the water recycling system to be more efficient, maybe stretch our food by rationing, and I can build some heating units from spare parts. Ben, what do you need to study these creatures? I can modify our communication system to work underwater, maybe build some probes to explore the area around us. Amy, can you keep us stable down here? The ship's got some damage, but I can make it work. Might be a bumpy ride, but we'll stay in one place. Jake activated the radio. Ambassador, We're staying for 2 weeks, but don't worry about us, we've got this figured out. Kethavar's voice came back filled with what sounded like admiration. Captain Murphy, you continue to amaze us. Your crew is trapped at the bottom of an alien ocean with failing equipment, and you sound like you are planning a vacation. Well, it is pretty relaxing down here. The view is incredible. As if to prove his point, one of the large creatures swam directly over their ship. Its transparent body glowed with rainbow colors, and they could see smaller creatures swimming inside it like fish in a living aquarium. Wow, Amy whispered. Lisa was already making plans. I can build underwater habitats from our landing gear, use them to extend our living space. Ben was modifying his instruments. I want to try making music for them, see if they respond to sound as well as light. Jake watched his crew transform from a rescue situation into a research expedition in the span of 5 minutes. They were going to turn their damaged ship into an underwater research station using nothing but spare parts and determination. On the Zephyrian ship, Veltar was updating their report to the Galactic Council. Sir, the humans have decided to establish a permanent research base on the ocean floor. Permanent? Kethavar asked. Well, for 2 weeks, which appears to be permanent by human standards. Kethavar looked at the readings from Europa's ocean. The human ship was surrounded by thousands of intelligent creatures, all of them communicating through light and movement. In just a few hours, Jake Murphy's crew had accomplished what most scientific expeditions took years to achieve. Veltar, send a message to the Council. Tell them we are observing the most remarkable scientific mission in galactic history. What should I say about their methods? Kethavar watched the lights dancing around the human ship far below. Tell them that when humans say, hold my beer, they mean, watch me turn disaster into discovery. Deep in Europa's ocean, Jake Murphy was planning the most improvised research mission in human history, and he had never been happier. 3 weeks had passed since the Liberty landed on Europa's ocean floor. What should have been a 2-week mission had somehow stretched longer, because the crew kept finding new things to discover. Lisa Carter had turned their landing gear into underwater habitats connected to the ship by flexible tubes. She called them bubble rooms because they were filled with air and looked like giant soap bubbles sitting on the ocean floor. Ben Rodriguez had learned to communicate with the native creatures using a combination of lights, sounds, and drawings in the sand. He could now have basic conversations with them about mathematics, art, and even emotions. Amy Sullivan had somehow fixed their navigation system using parts from a broken coffee maker and the ship's medical scanner. She claimed the coffee maker was the most important component. Jake Murphy was documenting everything, knowing that when they got back to Earth, nobody would believe half of what they had seen. The alien creatures had become their friends and research partners. The largest one, which the crew had named Big Blue, had learned to understand human pointing and could lead them to interesting locations in the ocean. Smaller creatures brought them gifts of strange crystals and unusual rock formations. On the surface, Ambassador Kethavar was preparing his final report for the Galactic Council. The human mission to Europa had become the most studied first contact event in galactic history. Sir, Veltar said, Earth's rescue ship will arrive in 3 days. Have you told the humans? Yes, sir. Captain Murphy said they need to finish their experiments first. Kethavar shook his head in amazement. They have been trapped underwater for 3 weeks with failing equipment, and they are worried about finishing their homework. Sir, I have been monitoring their progress. They have made more scientific discoveries in 3 weeks than most expeditions make in 3 years. Such as, they have identified 17 new species of intelligent life. They have mapped the ocean currents. They have learned the creatures' language. And yesterday, Ben Rodriguez discovered that the crystals the creatures give them can be used to generate power. Power? Yes, sir. Lisa Carter has already built a new reactor using the crystals. They now have enough energy to power their ship for months. Kethavar stared at the readings. They have solved their power problem using gifts from alien sea creatures. That appears to be correct, sir. Down in Europa's ocean, the crew was having a celebration dinner. Lisa had managed to catch some fish-like creatures that tasted surprisingly good when cooked. Ben had taught the alien creatures to play music by flashing their lights in rhythm. Amy had organized a swimming race between humans and aliens, which the aliens won easily but seemed to enjoy. "I can't believe we have to leave tomorrow," Jake said. "The rescue ship will be here soon," Amy pointed out. "We should probably be ready." Lisa was testing her crystal reactor. "Actually, we don't need rescuing anymore. This new power source works great. We could stay for months." Ben looked up from his conversation with Big Blue. "The creatures want us to stay too. They say they have more things to show us." Jake thought about it. They had enough power, enough food, and enough air. The ship was actually in better condition now than when they had landed, thanks to Lisa's constant improvements and the helpful alien creatures who brought them useful materials. "What does Earth think about us staying longer?" he asked. Amy checked their communication system. "Mission Control says we should come home for debriefing and medical checks. Then we can come back with a bigger team and better equipment." "That makes sense," Jake said. "But I hate to leave just when things are getting interesting." The next morning, the rescue ship arrived. It was called the New Hope and carried a crew of 12, including doctors, scientists, and engineers. "Captain," Sarah Roberts contacted them immediately. "Liberty crew, this is Captain Roberts. We're here to bring you home." Jake responded from the ocean floor. "Good morning, Captain Roberts. We appreciate you coming all this way, but we've got the situation under control." "Captain Murphy, you've been missing for 3 weeks. Everyone on Earth thinks you're dead." "Dead? We've been having the time of our lives down here." There was a pause. "Could you please explain your current status?" "We're living in an underwater research station we built from spare parts. We've made contact with intelligent alien life. We've learned their language, studied their culture, and they've been teaching us about their technology. Also, Lisa figured out how to make pizza using local ingredients." Another pause. "Did you say pizza? The fish here tastes like pepperoni. It's amazing." Ambassador Kethvar contacted the rescue ship. "Captain Roberts, this is Ambassador Kethvar of the Zephyrian Diplomatic Corps. I can confirm the Liberty crew's report. They have indeed established a functioning research base and made remarkable scientific discoveries. Ambassador, I wasn't aware there were other ships in the area. We have been observing the mission. The crew of the Liberty has exceeded all expectations for human achievement under extreme conditions." Captain Roberts was trying to understand the situation. "So they're safe?" "Very safe, and very successful. Their mission has become a model for how scientific exploration should be conducted." Down on the ocean floor, the crew was showing their new discoveries to the rescue team via video link. Ben demonstrated his communication with the aliens. Lisa showed off her crystal reactor and bubble habitats. Amy gave a tour of their underwater base. The rescue team was amazed. Dr. Helen Price, the mission's chief scientist, could barely contain her excitement. "This is incredible. You've made the greatest biological discovery in human history." "Wait until you see what Big Blue showed us yesterday," Ben said. "There's an entire underwater city about 10 kilometers from here." "A city?" "Well, more like a library. The creatures store information in crystal formations. They've been keeping records for thousands of years." Captain Roberts made a decision. "Murphy, we're staying. This is too important to rush." Jake grinned. "Welcome to Europa, Captain. Fair warning, though, it's addictive down here." "What do you mean?" "You'll see. Lisa, show them how to build underwater habitats. Amy, teach them the safety procedures. Ben, introduce them to our neighbors." "And what will you be doing?" Captain Roberts asked. Jake looked out at the alien lights dancing in the dark water. Big Blue was approaching with what looked like another gift. "I'm going to learn more about that underwater library. The creatures say they have information about other worlds with oceans like this one." "Other worlds?" "Turns out Europa isn't the only place with intelligent sea life. They've been in contact with similar creatures on dozens of worlds throughout the galaxy." Ambassador Kethvar was listening to the conversation with growing amazement. He activated his communicator to contact the Galactic Council. "Supreme Leader, I need to update my report about the humans. Have they finally agreed to be rescued? Sir, they have rescued themselves, and now they are planning to visit other ocean worlds to meet more intelligent species. That is impossible. Interstellar travel requires advanced technology they do not possess. Sir, 3 weeks ago it was impossible for them to reach Europa's ocean. Last week it was impossible for them to survive underwater. Yesterday it was impossible for them to communicate with alien species. I have learned to stop using the word impossible when discussing humans. What are you recommending? Kethvar watched the human ships on his scanner. The rescue vessel was already deploying equipment to expand the underwater base. Captain Roberts was talking excitedly about establishing a permanent research station. Jake Murphy was planning expeditions to alien worlds based on information from sea creatures. Sir, I recommend we offer humanity full membership in the Galactic Council. Based on one successful mission? Sir, they turned a disaster into first contact into a research base, and a research base into an interstellar exploration program, all in 3 weeks, using spare parts and determination. And their response to impossible odds? Kethvar smiled. They hold their beer and make the impossible look easy. 6 months later, Captain Jake Murphy stood before the Galactic Council on the space station Unity. Representatives from hundreds of worlds watched as he prepared to present humanity's application for galactic citizenship. Council leader Zephron spoke first. Captain Murphy, the Council has some concerns about your species' approach to exploration and risk management. Jake stood up and handed his water glass to Lisa Carter, who was part of his delegation. Hold my beer, Lisa. A ripple of excitement went through the alien representatives. Many had heard about the famous human phrase. Some had even adopted it in their own languages. Jake began his presentation. Honorable representatives, let me tell you about our plan to build underwater cities on 50 ocean worlds using nothing but human engineering and alien friendship. Ambassador Kethvar leaned back in his seat and smiled. In his final report he had written, "When humans say, 'Hold my beer,' they do not mean they are about to attempt something dangerous. They mean they are about to make the impossible look routine." The humans had kept their beer, and they had changed the galaxy forever.